If you're running a small YouTube channel for your business and you're struggling to make significant revenues, it can seem like a mystery how other channels, even much smaller channels, are able to make a fortune. But what if I told you there is a simple system that can turn your YouTube channel into a 24/7 sales machine? I'm going to reveal to you the exact YouTube strategies I am using for one of my businesses to generate an additional $35,000 per month in revenue, and I have less than 4,000 subscribers. Keep watching because these small tweaks could be the difference between your channel stagnating or skyrocketing your revenues, much more than you could ever imagine. There's no better way for me to illustrate this than through a channel audit. Number 1, do you know your strategy for your YouTube channel? This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see when I provide channel audits to my clients at YouTube Rainmakers. Here's the question. Do you have a clear audience that you are speaking to? And are you specifically creating videos that solves the problems for your viewer avatar? If not, you have a problem with your YouTube channel. Let's start with a law firm YouTube channel, Cannon & Associates. So the moment I pull this up, the first thing I can tell is this is definitely a law firm, and I can also tell that it's a criminal defense law firm because he says he's a former prosecutor now fighting for you. This is good. It's clear. I'm at least aware of exactly the type of content I'm going to receive when I watch this channel. Now, I want you to look at your channel. This might seem totally obvious, but if you can't, within just a second or two, tell what problem you're solving with this channel and who exactly you're speaking to, you could have a problem with your YouTube channel. You have to ask yourself this question. What is this channel about? Who is this content for? Who exactly is my ideal audience? And as a business owner, ideally, you want your customer avatar to line up with your viewer avatar on YouTube. Here, Cannon & Associates makes it pretty clear they're a criminal defense law firm, and they make it clear that they provide criminal defense services for people in Oklahoma. Now, the only downside to this, I can't exactly tell. Is this a commercial-based website? Is it just going to be ad-based stuff? Or is it going to talk specifically about problems I have? So there are some rooms for improvement here. He can make some improvement on the website, but I will say on a scale of 1 to 10, he didn't do too bad. We're looking at about a 7 here. Number 2. Do your titles speak to your audience? When I audit a channel, one of the first places I go is I want to see the type of titles that are being used for this audience. There are some simple but very important guidelines you should consider when creating titles for your YouTube videos. We're going to go through a few of them now. Number 1, you should consider trying to keep your titles less than 60 characters. The primary reason is that if you make it too long, your title may not completely show up on your phone. You should also aim to create intrigue and curiosity with your titles. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make with their titles is they use legal terms or business terms that only people in that industry would know. So the only time you want to use that type of language is if you're specifically using a search term. The next thing you want to make sure you do is that you want to make sure your title always complements your thumbnail. Remember, the title and the thumbnail must work together. You should always consider having 2 or 3 titles for your video, because if one title is not getting the job done and you start noticing your click-through rate or your performance dropping, you can always substitute it out with another title. In reality, one of the first things I do for my channel is I get my title and my thumbnail together and I make sure one complements the other, and I will many times have multiple titles ready just in case I need to rescue a video. Finally, don't always trust your opinion of your title. Sometimes, particularly myself as a lawyer, I have a tendency to be too close to the content, and I find myself using wording that somebody else who knows nothing about my content, they would get confused by it, or maybe it's not as clear as it should be. So, if you've got a girlfriend, your wife, your kids, ask them. There's a good chance they're going to have a strong opinion about a clearer title. So let's take a look at John's channel. So when I look at this, first of all, we see several of these titles that are a bit longer than 60 characters. And notice some of them get cut off. Now, they're not too terribly bad. The other problem I have here and that I want you to think about here is that sometimes there are multiple sentences. There are compound statements within the same title. That gets confusing. Now, when I look at this and I see from evidence to strategy, how defense lawyers prepare for court. I don't need from evidence to strategy. Don't need that. How lawyers prepare for court. That's very clear exactly what's being discussed here. Sometimes it's better to be less is more. You don't always have to add multiple sentences or multiple thoughts within a single title. So the big thing here when analyzing this, we see sometimes John's channel, John Cannon and Associates, he has a tendency to be too long. He says two different points in one title. From evidence to strategy, how defense lawyers prepare for court. Let's pare that down to just how defense lawyers prepare for court. Make it all one sentence. We sometimes don't ask questions. We need to create curiosity. One of the best ways to create curiosity is to ask a question so that we can find out what the answer actually is. And then the other thing I want us to think about is take a look at this video down here. We're going to look at police dogs. Police, dogs, and drugs, the inside scoop. Now, I want you to realize this for a second. Notice the difference between that title and a different title here. That title right there just makes a statement and says inside scoop. Or you could say how cops run drug dogs on cars without a warrant. Or can cops run drug dogs on cars without a warrant? Saying the same thing, but you're doing it in a format for which you're asking a question that creates curiosity. So look at your title. Are you creating curiosity and intrigue with your titles? If not, that could be a reason that your views are being limited. So when I look over here at John, one of the things I have to do, if I was to grade his titles, I would say he has a lot of work that he can improve his titles. And this is not bad news, this is good news. This is easy, these are easy fixes that he can make, that he can immediately begin to improve his performance on these videos. So I'm going to give him a score of 3 out of 10. Number 3, thumbnails. Thumbnails are the ultimate wrapping paper that we must all use in order to grab people's attention, to bring them in to watch our video, to earn the click. Now, before I launch into this, I want you to remember as a business owner that YouTube viewers are being suggested endless numbers of YouTube thumbnails for them to consider which video is worth spending their time watching. As a business owner, your goal should be to create thumbnails that are simple, colorful, and clear. You want to grab someone's attention and create curiosity. Back to Cannon and Associates and their YouTube channel, one of the things I remind people when I do channel audits, it's really important for branding to stick with the same color scheme, the same fonts. Always create familiarity so that the viewer instantly knows that it's your channel. For example, looking at Cannon and Associates, their most popular video, notice it says, it's a good, decent title, What to Do When Police Come to Your Door. The problem though is the thumbnail looks more like a billboard or an advertisement than it does a action-packed educational video. Instead, you could use a totally different approach here and use an actual thumbnail that puts the viewer in the place of a cop coming to your front door. Now I want you to notice the difference. Here is a video, same topic from my channel, Hampton Law, and I want you to notice the thumbnail here. Here we have a title that says 5 tips to stop cops when they come knocking, okay? Much more engaging title, grabs a hold of someone's attention, and there are actual tips here, things that you can act upon. But then notice the thumbnail. The thumbnail is someone opening the door from a first-person point of view, and a cop is standing there. And what are the words? Please step outside. Now what does this do? It puts the viewer in the first person point of view and imagining what it would be like and the stress and the nervousness of actually having to answer the front door and engage with a police officer. In comparison here, look at Mr. Cannon's photo. We see the wording on the screen, but there's nothing action here going on. And we see him sitting there with his arms crossed. Now look, I know I'm being picky when I talk about this, but psychologically, when we see somebody with their arms crossed, they're closed off. It's easier for us to not want to trust what they're going to say. And ultimately, it all comes down to the view count. Notice the difference. Cannon and Associates, What to Do When Police Come to Your Door, 60,000 views. Let's take a look at Hampton Law Firm's channel. As you see here, 5 tips when cops come knocking, 1.6 million views. So for Cannon and Associates, I think there's lots of room for improvement here on our titles and our thumbnails. So I give them a 3 out of 10. Number 4, analyze the first impressions of your video. Now, what do I mean by first impressions? Here's the reality. Many channels do not grow because the viewer has no reason to believe that the person talking knows anything about what they're talking about. We must find a way to build trust with our viewers instantly. For example, you watch this new channel for the video you're watching right now, and you see that I have only a couple of hundred subscribers. And it's easy to think, hey, who is this guy? He has no idea what he's talking about. Until you learn that I also own Hampton Law, my business YouTube channel with over 325,000 subscribers and over 18 million views per month. You then learn that this YouTube channel is making my law firm an additional $2 million a year, and I make a minimum of $15,000 per month extra in ad revenue. And that makes you stop and think, maybe there's some strategies here that might work for me. So the best way to make a good first impression is to get your authority clear and out to your viewer in the early parts of your video. Okay, for Cannon & Associates, for this channel audit, let's watch their most popular video and let's see exactly what type of first impression they make.
Hi, Attorney John Cannon here with Cannon & Associates, your fierce advocate. And today we're going to be speaking to what you should do when the police come to your door. If the police come to your door without a warrant, that's called a knock and talk.
Okay, so what do we find here? The problem is, number one, the audio is not great. People can handle poor video quality to some extent, but they usually will not spend much time watching videos if they're poor audio quality. So the first thing that could happen here is Cannon & Associates should focus on making sure they have the best audio quality that they can. Secondly, obviously, you could use some better lighting here. There's some other things that might make it more attractive. I like that he's using a visual. I think this is very effective. This is one of the fastest ways to get started when you create videos is to whiteboard things. There have been many other great creators who have used this approach. But when I look at this, the first impression is that it looks a little homemade, right? You look at it and you say Cannon & Associates, he does a little bit of a wind up and he doesn't give us a reason to be personally invested in why it matters to us when cops come to our front door. So the big question here is, why does the first impression matter? Why does establishing that credibility matter? Because I'm watching a video and I'm saying, do I trust this guy? And he's just a lawyer. What reason would I have to believe he is a good lawyer for me to follow and believe that he knows what he's talking about? So for here, first impressions, I've got to give Cannon & Associates a 5 out of 10. They could certainly improve their audio quality, a little bit better lighting, and really jump into why I should be trusting in what he has to say as opposed to any other attorney. Number 5, the hook. This part is so important because the first words that come out of your mouth on your video, you must hook the viewer to keep them watching. Let's listen to what we hear on this video of Cannon & Associates.
Fido is not always your friend, and in drug cases, drug dogs are a very common element that must be considered in your defense. If you're stopped on the side of the road by law enforcement, especially one that has a canine unit or a drug dog in their vehicle, it is not a very high bar for that law enforcement officer to take their dog out of their vehicle and do what's called a free air sniff.
Okay, he started with Fido is not always your friend. Now that's not really a hook. That's more of a setup to the video, but he didn't really pique the viewer's actual interest and draw them in and make it personal to them. Remember, with a hook, we want to pique the curiosity of the viewer, and then we want to set them up so that they want to wait around to make sure and see the payoff of the video. The best way to start creating hooks for your YouTube videos is to start with a simple question, rather than just making a statement. When you ask a question and then you mix the question with an emotion like fear or curiosity, now you're grabbing a hold of the viewer. Let's try a different approach from what Cannon & Associates did. Let's try this. Can cops pull you over without a warrant for speeding and then hold you on the side of the road for a drug dog search? I checked out many of the other videos of Cannon & Associates, and he did a pretty good job of jumping right into the content at the very beginning. But most of his statements at the beginning were really setups. They weren't really hooks, grabbing the attention and curiosity of the viewer. So I want you to understand, jump right into the content of what you're going to provide at the very beginning, except by all means, do not do a big wind up or a big wind down in your video. Nobody cares to hear about someone bragging about themselves at the beginning or the end of the video. Just set the hook, set the stakes of the video, establish your credibility, and dive into your content. For Cannon & Associates, I gotta admit, I would say maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10 for the hooks. Step number 6, the setup. Let's take a look at Cannon & Associates in this particular video because essentially that was their hook. All they did is provide a setup. So let's watch it again.
Not always your friend. And in drug cases, drug dogs are a very common element that must be considered in your defense.
Cannon and Associates showed us why we should watch this video, but what are the stakes for the viewer here? We need to not just give the law, we need to explain to the viewer what will happen negatively for them if they don't learn this information. How does this video relate to the viewer? For example, I'm now going to take exactly what Cannon and Associates did here, and let's talk about a new hook, a setup, and let's also make sure we set the stakes for the viewer. Is it legal for cops to pull you over, hold you on the side of the road, and force a drug dog search on your vehicle without a warrant? How you handle this situation could make the difference between you driving away safely or spending the night in jail. In this video, I'm going to show you how to stop cops from performing a drug dog search on your vehicle and the magic words you can use if they take that drug dog search too far. Notice what we did here. We established a strong hook. We also set the stakes for if the viewer doesn't watch this video, and we also laid out the setup of exactly what they're going to learn and the possible payoff if they wait till the end. For Cannon and Associates, I would have to say it's not terrible, but their setup I would give them a 5 out of 10. Number 7, presentation skill. Now this next step is very important because how you choose to share your information and the actual confidence with which you do educate your viewers will make a big determining factor as to the credibility your viewers will give you. In fact, the biggest YouTubers hire acting coaches to help them not only prepare, but rehearse exactly how they present themselves so that they can more effectively communicate what their message is to their viewers. No matter what you're doing, always come across in control and oozing the credibility. Now, let's watch Cannon and Associates. Let's see how John's presentation skills come across, and we can see if there's any room for improvement.
And in drug cases, drug dogs are a very common element that must be considered in your defense. If you're stopped on the side of the road by law enforcement, especially one that has a canine unit or a drug dog in their vehicle, it is not a very high bar for that law enforcement officer to take their dog out of their vehicle and do what's called a free air sniff around the vehicle itself.
Now, John has pretty good presentation skills here. I really like how he uses his hands. He keeps the viewer engaged. He makes good eye contact with the camera. Maybe a little bit more energy here. If he gives a little more energy, I think he might get a little bit better retention on his videos. But overall, I think he does a pretty good job. But what did you notice that he was missing here? He could really use some work on his scripting. If he improved his scripting and used some of the examples I just shared with you a moment ago, where he sets the hook, he sets the stakes for the viewer, and then he gives the setup to let the viewer know exactly what the payoff is at the end. If he used that approach on the first 30 seconds of his video, I bet he would 10x his views. In fact, if he combined his presentation skills with storytelling, imagine instead of just talking about specific legal issues, imagine if he incorporated it into a specific storyline, whether it was from a news article, maybe it was from an actual case that he litigated. That would keep people's attention because there's one thing people love, they love stories. And finally, get rid of the law speak. Do everything you can to take away all of the special language that you might use in your business and instead speak normal and explain things so that literally a 5-year-old could understand it. Still, I would say not bad. Presentation skills, 7 out of 10. Number 8, it is critical that you establish your credibility. You have to understand, people on YouTube will inherently not trust you. You must give them a reason to trust you. At the very beginning of the video, you must make sure that you establish your credibility. This doesn't mean you have to actually read your resume off to people on your video, but it does mean you can set up a hook that also incorporates an element of establishing why the particular viewer should listen to you as opposed to someone else for this content. Okay, so let's look at Cannon and Associates and let's watch the video and let's see if he sets up his credibility.
Fido is not always your friend, and in drug cases, drug dogs are a very common element that must be considered in your defense. If you're stopped on the side of the road by law enforcement, especially one that has a canine unit or a drug dog in their vehicle, it is not a very high bar for that law enforcement officer to take their dog out of their vehicle and do what's called a free air sniff around the vehicle itself. Courts, time and time again, have decided that this is not actually a search or seizure of your vehicle or your property that's invasive. And since the minimal intrusion of a dog sniffing around the outside of your car is such a minimal impact on you, it's not a very high bar for law enforcement to have this ability.
Okay, so he has shown me that he's a lawyer, But why should I trust him? Why specifically should I trust this lawyer over some other lawyer when they're talking about an issue related to a drug dog sniff? One way that John could improve his video here is to start with something more like this. Is it legal for cops to pull you over, hold you on the side of the road, and force a drug dog search on your car without a warrant? How you handle this situation could make the difference between you driving away safely or spending the night in jail. As a former prosecutor of over 10 years, now turned to a defense attorney, I have seen literally thousands of drug dog searches. In this video, I'm going to break down how you can stop cops from searching your vehicle with a drug dog and the magic words you can use if the cops take that drug dog search too far. Notice, we now established and worked in the credibility of why you should be listening to him by moving it into the hook. And by doing so, it creates a compelling reason for somebody to continue to watch the video. So for Cannon and Associates, I'm going to give them 5 out of 10 for credibility. Number 9, did you set up your business YouTube video to be optimized for marketing opportunities? Look, why do you think Cannon and Associates is running this YouTube channel? They want to get their phone ringing more for business. You must link your views to your business. So let's see how Cannon and Associates are now converting viewers into potential customers. And one of the best places to see this is at the end of someone's video.
Do not give up hope just because there's an alert on your vehicle that resulted in arrest. You have the right to be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures, and when you work with an experienced attorney, they can help ensure that your rights were not violated, even by FIDO that's acting as a police officer in your case.
Okay, let's start by focusing on the positive. Cannon and Associates is smart to at least put a phone number somewhere on this video, even though it's literally in the last 1 to 2 seconds of the video. But the thing that's missing here is an actual call to action. You have to tell people what you want them to do on your video. There could be a number of different call to actions you could consider. For example, if you're just trying to grow your channel, one of the best ways to do that is to have a call of action to encourage the viewer to watch the next video. If you're trying to actually establish a free consultation for that person to call you, you need to invite them to call the number on the screen. Or what I do is keep the number on the screen the entire video. Finally, if you have the type of business where you can actually have a longer sales cycle and maybe you can actually do an email campaign and nurture that lead, you could actually offer what's known as a lead magnet. A lead magnet is where you can offer a free resource to the viewer in exchange for their email address. Once you receive their email address, you can now populate that into your systems where you can now send further follow-up emails to people. And this type of strategy can literally transform your business. But we need some type of call to action here. This is one of the most fundamental mistakes that if Cannon and Associates were to add this right now, they would transform their business. At a minimum, consider putting the phone number and the name of the firm at the top left portion of the video for the entire length of the video. When I made this very small change of adding my name and phone number to the top left portion of my videos for Hampton Law, it fundamentally transformed my videos. I now receive up to 150 calls per month because people know I offer this in the North Texas area, and if they have a pain point, if they have an issue they need help with, they know they can call my law firm. Always make it super easy for people to reach you and know the service you provide so that they can hire you. Finally, we have one more place to look, and that is the description section of this video. Notice, I see information about subscribing, I see information about the Facebook page and some sort of text and all the social media stuff, but all this does is direct people off of YouTube under some other type of social media app that will not necessarily convert for your business. What does this do? This forces someone who might actually want to hire Cannon and Associates, or they have a problem they need help with. Now, it's not that easy to find them. I mean, in fact, you got to go all the way down here. I don't actually even see a link for the website at all, anywhere on this page. And so now I've got to go to Google, I've got to actually do a search and try to find him. That is going to lose a great majority of possible viewers because you have created friction and made it more difficult for them to start working with you. At a minimum, I would advise Cannon and Associates to put their website, and I would put it at the very top of the description section. Be very specific how someone can work with them so that you take away all the friction and make it easier to convert a viewer into a customer. So I give Cannon & Associates a 3 out of 10 when it comes to making sure they do marketing conversions from viewers to potential customers. Lots of work here, but the good news is very easy changes that can be made right now that will fundamentally increase the number of leads this law firm receives for their business. Finally, number 10, what type of email strategy or offer or communication are you providing to your viewers to make sure they know exactly what you can do for them? Now, criminal defense doesn't lend itself to email strategies as much because the sales cycle for criminal defense is usually 24 to 72 hours. So it's hard to really nurture people and nurture leads for email campaigns. However, let's say he was also doing family law, which in fact his website says he does. Family law is a great candidate to start considering an email campaign and a specific call to action to gain the viewer's email address. Cannon & Associates could literally create a nice looking lead magnet, and it could be titled something like this: 5 tips to get custody of your kids during a divorce. Now, imagine you're creating a divorce-based video or a child custody-based video, and now you have a lead magnet that says 5 specific tips or the blueprint to get your kids back during a divorce. You're going to have people that have searched out this video or that are going through a very difficult time in that state. You're going to find people downloading this. And now, because it takes them longer to hire a family lawyer, you're going to be able to reach out through email campaigns. And this is where you can begin to increase your sales conversion rates. This is how the big players on YouTube make millions of dollars. They provide an enormous amount of value through their channel, and then they turn around and they grab that email address, take them off platform, and nurture them and create trust and build customers from that. So overall, what did we think about Cannon & Associates? And I'm going to look over at my notes as I was going through this particular channel audit. Number 1, we can certainly improve the titles. There's lots of work here, easy steps that can be made to improve these titles. The thumbnails can definitely be improved. We talked about how there's some deficiencies on what we're doing with them now. They don't create much curiosity or intrigue in those particular thumbnails. And then think about this. He used an action or an actual end screen at the end of the video. The problem is he never had a call to action. If you have an end screen, if that end screen is up there, he needs to be able to look over and say, hey, if you liked this video, check out this next video where I cover, and then it needs to be a closely related point, a closely related video. I have videos on Hampton Law that have as much as a 25% conversion rate, that someone will watch all of one video and go over to another video and binge watch. If you're going to use that end screen, which I think you should, you need to make sure you have a call to action, letting people know why they should watch the next video and then inviting them to click. And finally, let's definitely clean up that description. Let's put the phone number up on the top left portion of the video and make sure we put our website clearly in the description section so that if somebody wants to work with Cannon & Associates, it's really easy to contact and they know what they can get help with. Now, I bet if Cannon & Associates were to implement these strategies right now for their business, they would double their phone calls from YouTube videos within the next 3 months. Now, I just went through some very basic points that can allow a business to double their calls in a very short period of time. But is it possible to actually make an additional $2 million a year from a YouTube channel for your business? Check out this next video where I give you an inside look to my $2 million YouTube sales funnel and how you can apply it for your business. See you over there.